Hey guys, Winter here, and today I'm going to be giving a short review of the game Ghostrunner. Ghostrunner is a cyberpunk action video game developed by One More Level and Slipgate Ironworks and is published by 505 Games. It's a fast-paced, first-person action hack-and-slash game built around a one-shot, one-kill mechanic. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the list of pros and cons.
You can use acceleration while in the air.
Between running, jumping, climbing, dashing, wall running, and sliding, movement is by far the strongest mechanic of Ghostrunner. In addition to those basic movements, we also have advanced movements such as grapple hook, the ability to stop objects, and the ability to slow down time. With all these abilities combined, no gap will be too far, nor jump too wide. In addition to the movement options, movement itself feels very tight and responsive. I never once felt like the game was lagging behind my inputs. And the vast majority of the time my character did something I didn't want him to, it was because my fault, not the game. Ghostrunner does a fantastic job at giving you options on how you want to approach combat. For almost every combat segment, there's at least 2 ways to approach. And depending on your preferred playstyle, one path might be easier than another. Overall, level design is the backbone of combat. Though that's not to say that combat's lacking, but I'd say that the game's lacking combat. But I'll talk more about that in the cons section of the video.
Follow the pipes to get out in the open.
Right off the bat, I just want to say combat is very fun. Much like movement, combat is very fluid and flows very well. One key aspect of combat I like to point out, in most melee-only action games, such as Metal Gear Rising or Vengeance and the Ninja Gaiden series, ranged enemies can be a nuisance at best and the bane of your existence at worst. However, in Ghostrunner, you're able to close the gap so easily and so quickly that most of the time you won't even realize that they're ranged enemies. The last aspect of combat I want to touch upon is dying, or more accurately, respawning. Because unless you're a master of the game who's played through it a dozen times, you're gonna die. And Ghostrunner managed to make the respawn process very pleasant. After you die, you just tap one button and boom, you're ready to give it another try without so much as even a loading screen. And I think that's one of the best part of combat, because if you're gonna have one-hit KOs, one-tap respawns complement it very well.
Go.
The story of Ghostrunner is passable, however I have 2 major gripes with it. The first primary gripe is, the closest thing that the game ever comes to as a cutscene is one short 10-second animation at the end of Mission 2. The rest of the story is told through dialogue spoken aloud by the characters. This is generally fine, especially when used in games such as State of Decay. However, in State of Decay, they use character dialogue to grow a character, rather than give exposition dumps like what cutscenes are mainly used for. This can be especially annoying in the middle of a combat encounter, because the game essentially gives you 2 options: continue enjoying the combat encounter, or sit back and listen to the dialogue for a few minutes. My next gripe is that half the story doesn't really make sense. To put it in the best way I can while avoiding any spoilers, a robotic killing machine on a time crunch decides to take a detour to help some humans he's never even met. And now that just doesn't seem quite right to me. Like I said before in the pros of combat, it's very fun. However, it's also extremely short once you've figured it out. I mean, the primary part of combat is just dying and retrying till you finally get it right. And since every enemy dies in one hit and kills you in one hit, no enemy feels more or less dangerous for either reason. I have one other major issue with combat, which is that there's hardly ever more than 6 enemies in one encounter at a time. With both of these issues combined, combat can just feel unsatisfying and unrewarding. One last thing about combat is, even though this game was primarily marketed as an action game, with the platformer being secondary, it feels like the opposite because enemy encounters feel too few and far in between for it to be an action game, whereas sometimes platforming stretches can go on for upwards of 4 minutes straight. The last thing I want to touch on are the bugs of the game. There aren't many, but the ones that are there are game breaking. I had to restart level 5 4 times, because in level 4 you have to go through the level to activate some fans. However, in level 5, sometimes they're not activated even though they should be, which causes you to be unable to complete the level due to the fans not being there.
The guard recruits the most brutal and reckless spacers, and
Overall, Ghostrunner is a fun, action platforming game that can deliver a good time to anyone with just its gameplay. However, I can only recommend purchasing Ghostrunner at full price if you prefer platforming over action and you don't care if the story's a bit of a mess. With that being said, I'd still recommend that you purchase the game, but just on sale. I'd go ahead and give the game a rating of 6 out of 10. And if you're still interested in a game like this but not this specific game, then I'd recommend checking out Katana Zero. It's got the same premise of a one-shot, one-kill mechanic, but I'd say it's definitely better executed, as well as having better gameplay, a much better story, and a better price, coming in at $15 on Steam and Switch, as well as being on Xbox Game Pass. Not to mention that it's also on sale for $10 on Steam right now, up until November 2nd of 2020. Anyway, that's it for the review. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe, and tell me what you thought about the game in the comments. See ya!
I need more power.